Welcome. Thank you for joining us for Democratic Dialogue, produced by the Gloucester Democratic City Committee through the 1623 studios. My name is Ann Rhinelander. I am a member of the GDCC. I was primarily a clinician and planner and zoning volunteer and preservation-based economic development in Connecticut. And since I've been in Gloucester, I've been involved in some community activism. Our guest today is Bob Shire, who will be telling us about Swing Left, which was a new organization for me, and about his background to some extent and his involvement with Swing Left. But I'm going to spoil the secret. He's been a journalist at high levels and IT consultant to global corporations. So he has wide background and seems to have selected a good organization. Bob, will you begin by introducing yourself briefly and telling us about Swing Left and your connections?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and thank you very much for having me. I'm Bob Shire. I started my career, as you mentioned, as a journalist for the Associated Press, United Press International, small papers. I worked in the IT computer trade press for about 10 years, and since the year 2000 have been an independent marketing writer for computer companies. For most of my life, I contented myself with being a hopefully educated voter, but after the 2016 election and the election of Donald Trump, I found myself, like a lot of people, angry, scared, and disgusted with not only Donald Trump's policies, but the damage that I see him doing to our democratic norms and institutions. I felt increasingly over time that it wasn't enough to talk to my significant other or to shake my head and say, isn't that terrible? And the other person would say, yeah, that's terrible too. I feel like our country is really in danger right now, and I strongly felt that I needed to go out and actually take effective action. Through my local Democratic town committee in Swampscott, I learned about Swing Left, and in my research with the various groups, it seemed like Swing Left was the most focused, the most well organized of all of the advocacy groups out there.
And again, it was new to me, but the more I looked into it, which was very briefly, the more unique and focused it seemed to be. So if you could tell us a little more about how it's organized, what its focus is, and how you differ from other red-blue maps and so forth.
Great.
Yeah.
Swing Left was formed in early 2017 by two Democratic/progressive activists in Western Massachusetts who were looking online to find a way where they could make a difference outside of this state, which is of course reliably blue. And they found that there were no good online resources for that, so they decided to create it themselves. And that's how Swing Left came to be. Our focus is very simple. It is to elect Democrats and progressives up and down the ballot, from the state legislative level to the U.S. House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate, and of course, most importantly, the presidency. We are not as ideological as some other groups, such as Indivisible. We will support any Democratic nominee once they are chosen through the primary and/or the convention process, and we don't get involved in any races until either the primary or a convention has chosen the nominee. In 2018, our focus was on flipping the U.S. House, which we were successful at. We did a lot of grassroots organizing. We recruited 300,000 volunteers nationwide. I myself was canvassing up in New Hampshire and also in Maine for Jared Golden, who won, excuse me, in a ranked choice voting election by something like 3,000 votes. And the fact that I might have made a difference there was really exciting to me. One second. Excuse me. So for
It's
2019,
pollen time. Pollen time.
indeed,
Yeah, sorry.
indeed. So for 2019, the swing left focus is to build the Democratic base, and that means making sure that every Democratic voter out there is registered, and also that they are motivated to turn out in 2020. So for 2020, Swing Left has extended its focus from just the House to winning all of the houses. So we have created a super state strategy, and we've identified 11 key swing states, and they are color-coded 4 areas where we feel we can flip Senate seats, the presidential seats, and then the blue represent areas where we want to elect Democrats and progressives to the state legislatures, because they are the ones who will redistrict their states and fight some of the really outrageous Republican gerrymandering that we've seen in these states, and by helping to restore fairness to the redistricting process, we'll be able to set the stage for the next 10 years of more democratic and progressive policies in these states, and also ending the Republican gerrymandering will also give us a much better chance at fair representation in congressional elections for the next 10 years.
Wonderful. That's a comforting timeline.
We hope, yes.
You're not involved then in maintaining the gains that we have. It's really focused on the
We most
highest
certainly are. We're
opportunity for
very
change.
focused on keeping the House, but we feel that if we do an effective job at the presidential, the Senate, and the local legislative levels, that if we're getting Democrats out to vote, they will also vote for the U.S. House candidates also. But a very good thing about Swing Left is that it keeps on top of changes in the political landscape, and the Swing Left national coordinators are telling us in real time, here is where we need your help right now. So as the landscape changes, has some of those House seats perhaps become a little more vulnerable, they will tell us, and we in turn will mobilize our activists to put more attention into those states.
So it's highly data-based in real time, and I imagine Republicans are doing some of the same. But this is quite impressive. I'm not sure that it's clear that the Senate, and yellow is presidential and blue is gerrymandering. The red is the Senate. So to me, it's a different way of visualizing and focusing, and that's.
And it's also a mix of a focus on obviously the key Midwestern states that were very key for Donald Trump in 2016, where he's already showing some weakness in the polls. I was just reading today that that a number of Republican PACs are really ramping up their voter registration efforts in Pennsylvania. So that's an area where we really need to focus our efforts also, which we're doing. I think it's very interesting that we have a shot, for example, at Texas, which would be a huge win for us. So we encourage and we offer opportunities. When someone signs up for Swing Left, we ask them, what states outside of Massachusetts do you have connections in, or would you be willing to travel to?
And you have 300,000 volunteers?
Well, we nationally have recruited 300,000 volunteers. We currently have 200 members in the North Shore Cape Ann chapter. It's growing rapidly, and we really encourage folks to join us, get on the mailing list, and you won't be spammed with multiple requests for donations every week, but every 2 or 3 weeks you'll receive an update on very pragmatic, focused actions that that you can take here in the Boston area, the Gloucester area, that will really make a difference nationwide.
That's also comforting. You had mentioned the expectations for people who join, and I was impressed with the flexibility and the appeal. So are your numbers increasing, you said?
Yes, they are. I started this, a local Democrat, a longtime activist with a lot more experience than I have, Alex Smullen in Swampscott, and I formed this chapter back in February. We had 70 members starting out, and we're up to 200 now and growing rapidly. And the Swing Left Greater Boston chapter is also kind of famous nationally for the number of folks who we turn out.
I'm impressed, and I also have a feeling that the more we hear about it, the more likely the numbers will grow.
That's what we hope.
Out of the same need for finding a way to do something. And as you said, whether we win or not, at least we can tell our next generations that we've done all we could. And I think that's very appealing, very powerful, and should invite us all to sign up. So,
thank you.
Good, thank you. Again, I don't want to get away from swing left, but again, this is data driven, and your shift into IT systems for global
Companies, clients, yes.
is impressive. So are you contributing as well to the IT?
I am not, but we have an IT team actually in Swing Left Greater Boston that's developing the systems that will help us to not only track activists, send out emails to them, and to find those folks who are willing to step up and take greater responsibility over time. Swing Left recently merged with another organization called Flippable that has that brings a very data-driven strategy aspect to our organization, and they are actually sending us week by week updates on state legislative races where we can make a difference. So that's kind of a marriage of their strategy work and our sheer number of volunteers and the amount of energy that we can put out on the ground. We're also partnering. We're very big into partnering. So we aren't officially affiliated with Indivisible or with the Democratic Party, but we will work with anyone out there who wants to work with us. And speaking of the data side, we are working with a group called Voter Registration by Mail, where they are identifying Democratic voters who have not voted reliably in the past, and we're sending targeted postcards out to them, and this other group is following up with them and continually refining how we send letters out to them to see the results of our work so that we can improve it. So if you volunteer with Swing Left, you'll be working with a group that is actively and consistently looking to make sure that our efforts really make a difference and changing course. And I should also say that for someone who is interested, you can be involved as much or as little as you would like. You can show up for a letter writing event once a month, every 2 months, or if you want to host an event, if you want to do phone banking. We also have a need for folks who can work from home, just maintaining our systems and doing data entry. We feel that our job is to connect you as an activist to pragmatic, real action, and to find a way that works for whoever you are, wherever you are, because we can use the help.
Wonderful. And for once, I'm hearing coalition and coordination rather than proliferation. And so in addition to not being pounded for money, we are utilizing more and more resources without duplicating or fragmenting, and letting people tailor their work to their own needs to make a difference and capabilities.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it sounds more and more appealing and likely to make a very big difference. So
That's
yeah,
what
thank you.
we hope.
Yeah, good, good. I think we've covered a lot. Is there anything else you'd like to insert while you have the opportunity?
Sure. Well, I'd like to say that personally, I was never really involved as an activist before last year. And when I saw what was happening in the country, I thought back to the people of my parents' generation when our country was under threat during World War II. And I felt like folks like my parents showed up and they essentially said, send me somewhere where I can help. And so to go out and do things like canvas in the wilds of Maine wasn't exactly in my comfort zone, but I found it tremendously rewarding. A lot of folks who come to our Swing Left events thank us for the opportunity to take action, and I find it a great relief and a real nice change from swearing at the TV. Instead of feeling angry, scared, frightened, I feel like I am being effective. And there are a lot of other great people out there taking action who are very smart, very committed, and it will make you feel better if you volunteer. And I feel almost like the times are such that if we aren't moving out of our comfort zone to take action, we're not doing enough. So in addition to the work, the sacrifice, the travel, etc., there are great rewards in this.
The 60s mantra was, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And now it seems to me that my own experience too is that if I'm sitting home alone, it's terrifying. If you're in the presence of others, there's synergy, so that it's 1 and 1 make 3 or more.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you keep moving ahead further and farther. So.
Amen.
Good, yeah.
Amen.
Now I had a shift from pontification to further clarification. I think you've covered a lot of ground for me, and I did like your adding your own personal experience. So I'm going to count on you to come up with something.
Okay, very good. So I would like to talk about the balance between working from within the state and also outside of the state in some of these key swing states. Right now, a lot of our work is postcard writing parties, letter writing parties, text banking. However, we will be moving through this fall and in next year into organizing trips to these various swing states. We've already sent folks to canvass in North Carolina for Mike McCready's congressional campaign in the North Carolina 9th Congressional District. That's a race that was overturned in the face of fairly outrageous Republican vote stealing and vote tampering. I was actually in Cambridge hearing him speak last night, and in a district that President Trump won by 12 points in 2016, Mike McCready is in a neck-and-neck race with his Republican opponent. So there's another opportunity, like in Maine, where it's really true that every single vote counts. And although right now we're doing a lot of letter writing, postcard writing, I'm hearing consistently that face-to-face canvassing, where you actually get to talk to voters, is the most important. So to the extent that volunteers can afford to travel to other states, have the time and the money to, it's the most effective thing that we can do. And I find that actually showing up at someone's door is a much more personal thing than sending a letter to them or calling them. And it shows to them that you at least cared enough to go out, come up to their door. So I would encourage anyone who has friends, family in any of these swing states to consider canvassing. We have training on how to canvass. We can partner you up with other people if you want, if you're not comfortable with it at first. And it's a very rewarding thing at the end of the day to think that if you even swung 10 votes or so, and there were 100 other people out there also swinging 10 votes, that could mean the election. And that's a very powerful thing.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much, and especially for coming out on such a rainy day.
Thank you very much.
But I think we've reached the point where if people tuned in late, it might be good to go back to swing left overview, and also the uniqueness of your focus on 3 levels.
Sure. So to sum up, Swing Left is focused exclusively on electing and re-electing, obviously, candidates at the Senate, the presidential, and the state legislative levels. And if you want to join, you can email me, bob.shire, SCHEIER, @gmail.com. And thank you again.
Good. And swingleft.org.
That is correct.
Okay.
Swingleft.org. You can find our local chapter and can sign up online, of course, also.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay, good.